Midterm elections occur every 4 years, halfway through the presidential term, and are critical because they determine the control of Congress, specifically, the House of Representatives and the Senate. These elections are often seen as a referendum on the sitting president's performance, but they also serve as a battleground for broader political influence. Historically, the party in power tends to lose seats, but this cycle looks to be different, with significant stakes and high tensions. This year's midterms are especially crucial for Donald Trump. Many analysts believe he sees these elections as a pivotal opportunity to reassert his influence over the Republican Party and, ultimately, to position himself for a potential run in 2024. Trump and his allies are undertaking aggressive strategies, including efforts to manipulate the voting process and undermine the integrity of the electoral system. At the core of Trump's political strategy is a desire to prevent Democrats from gaining control of Congress. He understands that if Republicans lose the House or the Senate, it diminishes his ability to influence national policy, investigations into his administration, and the political narrative leading up to his potential presidential bid. One of Trump's main concerns is the possibility of being impeached or facing legal challenges that could jeopardize his political future. He's reportedly obsessed with maintaining control of Congress because it serves as a shield against legal and political threats. Keeping the GOP in power is seen as a way to protect his legacy and future ambitions.
You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, it's just going to be, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached.
But beyond just rallying support, Trump is actively working to manipulate the electoral process itself. This includes efforts to gerrymander districts, which means redrawing electoral boundaries to favor his party. Gerrymandering is a long-standing tactic but has become more pronounced under Trump's influence, with pushes in states like Texas, Missouri, Ohio, and even California. The goal here is to create districts that are redder, making it easier for Republicans to win seats regardless of overall voter preferences. However, this strategy isn't going unchallenged. Some Republican officials have pushed back against Trump's attempts to redraw districts mid-decade, fearing it could backfire or be perceived as unfair. Despite these setbacks, the effort to gerrymander remains a key part of Trump's plan to secure electoral victories. As gerrymandering faces resistance, Trump and his allies are shifting focus to more direct control over the voting process. They're pushing to overhaul election laws and procedures to ensure outcomes favor their candidates. Recent developments include moves in Georgia's Fulton County, where federal agents raided the election office, seizing nearly 700 boxes of ballots, an action that has sparked controversy and allegations of election interference. Trump's confidants, including figures like Tulsi Gabbard, have been tasked with investigating election security, though critics argue this is a guise for attempts to undermine trust in the electoral system. Former officials and experts warn that these actions are part of a broader plan to steal the midterms by manipulating vote counts and intimidating voters.
What exactly did you mean when you said that you should nationalize elections, and which 15 states are you talking about?
I want to see elections be honest, and if a state can't run an election, I think the people behind me should do something about it. Because, if you think about it, a state is an agent for the federal government in elections. I don't know why the federal government doesn't do them anyway. But when you see some of these states about how horribly they run their elections, what a disgrace it is, I think the federal government, when you see crooked elections, and we had plenty of them, and by the way, we had them last time, but go to 2020 and look at the facts that are coming out. Rigged, crooked elections. If we have areas, take a look at Detroit. Take a look at Pennsylvania. Take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta. Look at some of the places that horrible corruption on elections. And the federal government should not allow that. The federal government should get involved. These are agents of the federal government to count the votes. If they can't count the votes legally and honestly, then somebody else should take over.
Furthermore, Trump has openly called for the federalization of elections, advocating for national control over voting in what he describes as crooked and rigged processes in certain states. He has suggested that if states cannot run honest elections, then the federal government should step in and take over, an idea that challenges the principles of federalism and state sovereignty. He has also promoted the idea of nationalizing elections in a way that would give the federal government more power to oversee and possibly interfere with state-run voting processes. These claims are based on false allegations of widespread voter fraud, despite extensive evidence showing the 2020 election was secure. A significant aspect of Trump's strategy involves pushing false narratives about election fraud. Despite no credible evidence, Trump repeatedly claims that he won the 2020 presidential election and that the results were illegitimate. He has encouraged supporters to believe that the election was stolen through rigged voting machines and fraudulent ballots. His allies, including former associates like Roger Stone and Sidney Powell, continue to promote these conspiracy theories. Recently, figures associated with the 2020 election fraud claims have been seen back in Trump's orbit, suggesting plans to revisit or even attempt to repeat these tactics in the upcoming midterms. Trump's rhetoric includes calls to find votes and claims that certain states have crooked elections. He has even suggested that the federal government should intervene in state elections if they are not honest, a move that would fundamentally undermine the federal structure of American democracy. This push to control elections is not just about winning, it's about reshaping the democratic process itself. Trump and his supporters are attempting to delegitimize electoral outcomes they don't favor, aiming to ensure that they stay in power regardless of the actual votes cast. This attitude threatens the very foundation of American democracy, which relies on free, fair, and transparent elections. Additionally, there are alarming reports of federal agents acting aggressively in blue states, conducting raids, and even shooting law enforcement observers. Critics argue that these actions are meant to intimidate voters and suppress turnout in Democratic-leaning areas, further skewing the electoral landscape. Looking ahead, Trump's focus is clear. He aims to stay ahead of any legal or political threats by consolidating power now. While traditional campaign tactics like rallying supporters and fundraising continue, his more insidious efforts involve influencing the election infrastructure, district maps, voting laws, and the very legitimacy of the vote. His recent statements about nationalizing elections and his backing of legislation to impose stricter voting restrictions signal a concerted effort to tilt the playing field in favor of his base. The overarching goal is to prevent any scenario where he might lose, and to make sure that if he does run again, he can secure a victory through any means necessary.